So Ken, here we are on the Welsh-English border, recording the English Symphony Orchestra in a new work by Brahms. Is that right?
A new take on a work of Brahms. Yeah, absolutely.
We've done 2 sessions so far, and it's going amazingly well. Everyone's so enthusiastic about it, and the sound that they're creating in this room is great. But tell us a little bit about the orchestra.
The orchestra was founded in 1980 by a conductor named William Boughton.
Right.
Originally, it was the English String Orchestra. Gradually, they started adding winds and doing bigger repertoire. The orchestra continues to play as both English String Orchestra and English Symphony Orchestra. And one of the things I find most appealing about the group is that the size of orchestra that we field in the course of the year ranges from sort of tiny little 12-piece string ensembles up to Algar symphonies.
Right.
And this is this is big for us, a big Brahms symphony with full strings, but not unprecedented. And it's great to have the flexibility to traverse the whole repertoire.
I mean, it's nice to do something like this because it's big, but it's sort of traditional in a sense. There's no strange percussion. There's nothing to sort of augment your kind of parameters too far.
No, exactly. I wanted to stick very much with the orchestra that Brahms would have known. So I haven't added any xylophone.
So you weren't tempted by the Schoenberg type of arrangement?
I might not have heard the Schoenberg in longer than anyone else in this room.
Right.
When I decided to do this, which was back in 2008,
right,
I thought, I just have to pretend Schoenberg doesn't exist.
Right.
I've never really warmed to it. I find
you never a lot of people feel that way. I think about it.
I think it has its qualities, and I love, for instance, his orchestration of Das Lied von der Erde, his own orchestrations of Verklärte Nacht and the Second String Quartet. Yeah. He was a master at both enlarging and shrinking things down, but somehow I feel like in this he kind of missed the spirit in the Opus 25.
Well, his tongue is very firmly lodged in his cheek, I think, when he's writing it, isn't it? Especially when you get to the last movement, you can hear the sort of the humour in it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. The sort of klezmer touches and the xylophone and all that kind of stuff. It is fun, but so next week when this is all done, I'll put it on and see if I still don't like it. Maybe I'll think, my God, he's a genius. I should have listened to this the whole time.
But this, as you say, your reworking of Opus 26 is quite different, much more Brahmsian, much more stylistically as Brahms would have written it. Another symphony of Brahms, let's say. And what were the challenges? How much is it simple sort of transcription? How much do you have to sort of think about what Brahms would have done and then?
Well, the biggest challenge, obviously, is that it starts with its roots in piano, and the piano plays comfortably at extremes of register in a way that orchestral instruments don't. So you have to make a lot of hard choices about what octave things are in, and whether that starts to create clashes, because he thinks very carefully about not having everyone all slammed in the same register. But if you think basically the top part of the piano, you're going to use very sparsely with the symphony orchestra. And also the nature, sort of piano figuration, which he understood so well. His piano writing is incredibly idiomatic. A lot of that doesn't work on orchestral instruments at all. And but it's a slippery slope because there are things where you look at them initially and you think, well, that's a figuration and I can change it to anything as long as the pitches are right.
Yeah.
But then actually he'll take little bits of the figuration and turn it into motives and themes.
It's thematic, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to be very, very careful. And so I would say in some ways there's stuff in this that's more virtuosic than you would find in the symphonies, just because of that necessity of staying close to the piano. There's some sort of specific challenges that come up in the piece. There's this famous passage early in the second movement in the Adagio, which in the original sounds almost like a harp glissando.
Oh, the piano
sweeping arpeggios,
fantastic
in the piano, and that's necessitated a complete rethink.
I listened to it again, knowing that we were going to do this session. I was wondering how you were going to do that, and what you've done is amazing. I mean, you look at the score and you think, it seems like so sparse. So I mean, but it captures the essence of the intention of the growl.
Yeah, to me, it's the sort of the earth and moaning in a way. I wanted something really that kind of feel, and beyond that, I mean, it really is. It's a sort of a swell and a harmony kind of a thing. So that. I've sort of written it with sort of a staggered brass chorale and a swell in the temps. That seems to give it that sense of the shifting of the earth.
No, it's very effective, and it really it paints. Do you think you can shed a new light on the actual music, the themes? In the music.
I think to me the whole quartet is very much a sort of love letter to nature.
Right.
So much of the outdoor world. Brahms, I think, some of his most touching and personal music is that sort of spirit of the outdoors. The first serenade, the D major symphony.
Right. Yes.
And so there's horn calls and horn fifths all the way through the quartet, and you can actually put them on horns. Well, more the better. So I think a lot of the sort of symbolism of meadows and mountains, I think you can be a little bit more overt, because you've got the colors there, and being able to turn on the timpani every once in a while gives it that sense of scope and shape and stuff.
You're right. I mean, it is very pastoral, isn't it? I mean, it's and the timpani, and especially in this place with these hard sticks punching through when everything is so soupy, it does conjure this sort of quality of nature. This like the Beethoven or something like that. It's got the foreboding. With these growls that you were talking of.
I don't think it's not city music at all.
No.
It's really out in the countryside, and I think with Brahms also. Even when you're not doing the other piece, he always writes pieces in pairs. So, if you think about Opus 25 with all this sort of high tragedy in the early movements and then this very raucous, drunken finale, this is kind of the opposite of that. There's a lot of sort of deep serenity, sort of wise, open-spaced, meditative approach to life, which I think is really compelling.
I was fascinated listening to it, how some of it seems so like other composers, but only you would never think it, to listen to the original version. But when it's been orchestrated so masterfully, of course, but it conjures all sorts of ideas. Like does Bruckner at one moment, it seems so clear to me, but you would never think that from the quartet version. Was there any moment like that where you thought that this is this?
Yeah, I think Brahms, more than almost any composer, I think, has such a strong voice, and you don't see in him the way you do in even Mozart, certainly Beethoven's sort of stylistic evolution through different chapters. By the time you get to Opus 2 of Brahms, he's very much him. But if there is a sort of direction of travel, it's quite an early piece.
Right.
It's from being more romantic to more classical in the later works. So by the time you get to the Fourth Symphony and the Double Concerto, everything is a little bit more terse and a little bit more contained. And I think in the early pieces, you can hear a little bit more kinship with Wagner and Bruckner. I think that the sort of overt romanticism is there, and certainly the slow movement of this quartet, whether in the original or the orchestral version, is by Brahms's standards a really big romantic slow movement statement. Of the kind that really none of the symphonies sort of have. No. The Adagio of the Second Symphony is probably the closest analog, but this is somehow deeper and darker in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah.
Even the sort of really spacious, serene E major opening with what we have now,
yes.
the clarinet.
Yeah.
To me, it's just so spiritually deep. The waters are full of shadows and deep meanings and all of that.
And what's it like listening to it for the first time, if you like? Because obviously you've been thinking about it in your head when you've been going through the process, and now you're in front of an orchestra and you're. Is there much that you feel you need to iron out, or are there things that you think we should have done differently? Or?
Tiny little things, a couple little corners. Where one occasionally gets into trouble is where you've tried to be too didactically, slavishly true to Brahms.
Right.
So there's a little spot at the end of the exposition of the first movement where we had to make an octave change in the session.
Right.
From what I had transcribed, which is exactly what's in the original Brahms, but it doesn't work. Right. With the orchestral instrument. So Brahms sort of jumps from a very high octave immediately to a low octave.
Right.
And somehow it wasn't working with the orchestra.
Yeah.
Very few of those, actually. Right. I spent a fair number of minutes as we were getting ready for this just telling myself, when you get into the session, forget it's yours. You have to conduct it like it's someone else's.
Right.
And so, whenever things get a little problematic, I just conduct it like it belongs to someone else. Because otherwise you can start standing up there going, oh, should I have added the horns to this melody or something?
Yes.
And not be really in the music.
Yeah, well, that's what he did, so I just followed the score.
Yeah.
Right. So we have one more session to go. The last movement we have to tackle now. These sessions are quite exciting for more than the reasons we've already outlined, but we're live streaming some of it on the internet. What was the idea behind that? What made you think that would be?
I have known colleagues in this business, in particular orchestral musicians, who sort of, equate recording with sausage making. You don't really want to know how it all works because it's not so pretty. I think it's a fascinating process.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. You know, in a situation like this, we are literally starting from scratch. You know, everyone's had the parts and practiced them, but you know, from sight reading to finished perfection, the CD product, you know, that's what we have to do today.
Right.
And so, yeah, it takes a little bit of, you have to trust that your audience will listen sympathetically and to enough of the process that they can see things developing and coming together. We just thought, you know, why not? And, you know, I think in a way, you know, if you give audiences a chance to see actually these are human beings working through the music, they're not machines, you know, and it doesn't take for granted the kind of polish one gets in a concert.
I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, I'm a big film fanatic, and I love all those sort of extra features and behind the scenes
Director's
footage,
commentary,
and
all
there
of
are
that,
absolutely director's commentary, but also just the kind of off the cuff moments where you see the director confiding in an actor or something, or you know, so the kind of fly on the wall aspect of it, I think will be fascinating for people. I don't know if people really understand just how much goes into a recording, you know. I mean, it'd be quite a surprise, I think, to some people to see the level of detail and the level of kind of manipulation. I mean, not manipulation. These are the normal things you go through in any rehearsal process, but
I think also, hopefully, it shows people the collaborative nature of the process a little bit. You know, because I think some people assume that it's just the conductor running the session. Some people assume that the producer runs the session. Some people think that, you know, the players are you know, just there to grind out the notes. You can see, you know, there's hands being raised, suggestions, exchanges, all of that, and working very fast and collaboratively, you know, to get to the best result as fast as we can.
And we are.
We are. One more movement to go. And one of the fascinating things about doing early Brahms is the fact you see sort of youthful energy and ardor and vitality. And this last one is just party music. A lot of it, you know, it's very earthy, very rustic, and you know, not too sober, hopefully.
No, so it'll certainly wake people up, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, well, it's been great to chat to you in this break that we're having now, and I can't wait to hear the edit.
Cheers, Phil. Likewise.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your help today.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.